No. One, your daily habits are the blueprint for transformation. When people talk about changing their lives or becoming a new version of themselves, they often focus on grand, dramatic gestures, quitting a job, moving to a new city, or having some kind of overnight breakthrough. But the truth is, lasting transformation is rarely the result of one big moment. It's the slow accumulation of small, intentional actions repeated every single day. Your habits, the things you do repeatedly, often without thinking, are the most powerful tools you have to shape your identity and direct your future. Your current self is the product of your current habits. If you consistently avoid discomfort, procrastinate, overthink, or seek validation, you're reinforcing a version of yourself that feels stuck, uncertain, or unfulfilled. On the other hand, if you start to build even one small daily habit that aligns with the person you want to become, whether it's journaling, exercising, waking up earlier, or speaking up, you are actively voting for a new identity. Every time you perform that habit, you're casting a vote for the future version of you. This is why habit change is more than productivity. It's personal evolution. Habits are not just things you do, they are expressions of who you believe you are. That means that building new habits isn't just about adding tasks to your schedule. It's about embodying a new mindset, a new energy, a new identity. When you choose your habits deliberately, you are writing the script of your future life in real time. And this process isn't about perfection. It's about consistency. You don't have to get it right every day. You just have to stay committed to the process. Small, seemingly insignificant actions, done consistently, compound into massive internal and external shifts over time. That's how real reinvention happens. Not from a single moment of inspiration, but from the discipline of aligning your actions with the person you are becoming. No. Environment either reinforces the old you or supports the new one. People often try to change themselves while staying in the exact same environment that created their dissatisfaction in the first place. This is like trying to recover from an addiction while keeping the same friends, visiting the same places, and keeping the same routines that triggered the old behavior. Your environment has immense power over your identity. It can either anchor you to the past or elevate you toward your future. We are social creatures, and whether we realize it or not, we absorb the energy, language, habits, and mindsets of the people and spaces we surround ourselves with. If your environment is filled with people who complain, settle, avoid responsibility, or reinforce your worst tendencies, it becomes exponentially harder to grow beyond them. You begin to internalize that energy and accept it as normal. You may even feel guilty or anxious for wanting more, as though self-improvement is a betrayal of the group. But when you intentionally curate your environment, by choosing who you spend time with, what media you consume, how your physical space is arranged, and what habits are supported around you, you begin to build a foundation that supports your transformation. Maybe it's joining a community of like-minded people who share your goals, designing your room to reflect your vision, or even taking breaks from relationships that consistently pull you back into the old version of yourself. Creating a supportive environment is not about being dramatic or cutting everyone off. It's about recognizing that your surroundings aren't neutral, they are shaping you. They either keep you tethered to the identity you're trying to outgrow, or they reflect the version of you that you're building. If you want to change your life, your environment needs to make the new version of you easier to live in, and the old version harder to return to. Action precedes belief. One of the biggest misconceptions people have about change is that they need to believe in the new version of themselves before they can start acting like it. They think confidence must come first, that clarity must arrive before they take the leap, that they need to feel ready, inspired, or worthy before they begin the work. But the truth is, belief doesn't lead to action. Action creates belief. When you wait for belief to show up before you act, you're putting your future in the hands of emotion and hesitation. Transformation happens when you flip that model, when you take action before you fully believe, when you wake up and go to the gym, even though you still think of yourself as out of shape, when you speak up in a meeting, even though you still doubt your voice. When you write the first page of the book, even though imposter syndrome is screaming in your ear. This is how belief is built, through evidence. Every time you act in alignment with the new version of yourself, you're collecting proof that you can be that person. The first few times, it feels fake. It feels forced. That's normal. But over time, repetition overrides resistance. You begin to see yourself differently, not because someone convinced you, but because your own behavior gave you a reason to believe. Confidence is not something you wait for. It's something you earn by doing the hard thing anyway. Identity change is a loop. You act like the person you want to become, and eventually you become the person who naturally acts that way. Every courageous, uncomfortable, uncertain action is a vote for your transformation. Belief follows behavior, not the other way around. No. 3. Self-rejection is a wake-up call, not a life sentence. There's a kind of quiet agony that comes with not liking yourself. It creeps into your thoughts, your relationships, your choices. It makes you question your worth, second-guess your dreams, and shrink your sense of what's possible. But as painful as it is, that inner discomfort is not the end of the story, it's the beginning. That ache isn't a curse, it's a call. A call to examine the version of yourself that no longer fits. A call to confront the gap between who you are and who you know you could be. Feeling disconnected from yourself can be terrifying, but it also means you're awake. It means you haven't become numb. You still care. There's still a part of you that knows you were made for more than surviving each day, in a body or identity that doesn't feel like home. This dissatisfaction is not a flaw, it's fuel. It's your soul trying to get your attention, trying to shake you out of autopilot and into awareness. But too often, we interpret self-rejection as proof that we're inherently broken or unworthy. We wear it like a permanent identity, rather than seeing it as a signal that growth is needed. You don't dislike yourself because you're hopeless. You dislike yourself because something inside you is misaligned with your truth. Maybe you're living by someone else's expectations. Maybe you've accepted limitations that don't belong to you. Maybe you've outgrown the life you're living. Whatever the reason, the discomfort is not the problem. It's the doorway. You just have to be willing to walk through it. Define the new you. With clarity, reinvention is impossible if the vision is vague. You can't become someone new without knowing who that someone is. Too many people say they want to change or be better, but they never take the time to articulate what that means. Without clarity, your efforts become scattered, your energy gets drained, and your motivation fades. You don't need a perfect blueprint, but you do need a direction. Defining the new you begins by asking better questions. Who do I admire, and why? What does my ideal day look like? How do I want to carry myself in conversations, in challenges, in solitude? What beliefs does the future version of me hold? What habits do they practice? What kind of energy do they bring into a room? These are not superficial questions, they're identity-shaping ones. And the more specifically you answer them, the more clearly your path to transformation becomes. You also have to get honest about what needs to be left behind. What behaviors no longer serve you? What roles or personas have you outgrown? Clarity isn't just about what to add, it's also about what to release. Think of yourself as an architect. You're not just painting over the old walls. You're tearing down what doesn't belong and laying the foundation for something new, purposeful, and deeply aligned. Creating this vision is not about chasing perfection, it's about alignment. It's about imagining a version of yourself that feels powerful, authentic, and free, and then building your life in a way that matches that internal image. When you define the new you, clearly you stop guessing your way forward, and you start acting with intention. Stop asking for permission to evolve. One of the most invisible forms of self-sabotage is waiting for others to give you permission to change. We hesitate to evolve because we're afraid of how people will react. We worry about being judged, misunderstood, or rejected. We fear outgrowing relationships, disrupting the status quo, or making people uncomfortable. So we hold ourselves back, not because we can't grow, but because we're waiting for someone else to approve the version of us we want to become. But growth doesn't require consensus. Reinvention is not a team sport. You will never become the person you're meant to be if your actions are dictated by the comfort zones of others. The truth is, some people benefit from you staying small. Some people feel safer when you're insecure, compliant, or predictable. But your evolution isn't about them. It's about you stepping into the fullness of your life, even if it threatens the structure of relationships or dynamics that no longer fit. You don't need permission to want more. You don't need applause to start changing. You don't need everyone to understand your path to know that it's valid. In fact, waiting for external validation is one of the fastest ways to lose yourself. The people who truly love and respect you will support your growth, even if they don't fully understand it. The rest, let them feel whatever they need to feel. This journey demands boldness. You have to be willing to disappoint others in order to not disappoint yourself. You have to be willing to look selfish in the short term to protect your long-term well-being. Evolution isn't always graceful or widely accepted, but it is necessary. Stop looking over your shoulder for approval. You already have the most important permission, your own. 4. Break the loop of negative self-talk. Your internal dialogue is one of the most powerful forces shaping your life. The words you whisper to yourself in silence, the tone you use when you fail, the stories you replay when you're alone, these become the script that programs your beliefs, emotions, and behaviors. Negative self-talk often operates below the surface, like background noise you've become too familiar with to notice. I always mess things up. I'm not good enough. No one really cares. These phrases might sound like passing thoughts, but they're not. They're toxic affirmations, and if repeated long enough, they turn into self-fulfilling prophecies. You become what you consistently say to yourself. And when your inner dialogue is critical, demeaning, or hopeless, it robs you of momentum. It paralyzes your ability to try, to grow, to even imagine a better version of you. The loop of self-negativity becomes a trap. You feel bad, so you speak to yourself with cruelty, which makes you feel worse, which lowers your energy and confidence, which leads to more mistakes or missed opportunities, and the cycle repeats. Breaking this loop requires conscious interruption. It starts by becoming aware of the language you use. Would you say those same things to someone you love? Would you allow someone to speak to your child, or your best friend, the way you speak to yourself? If not, why allow it internally? Replacing negative self-talk isn't about cheesy mantras or ignoring your struggles. It's about choosing language that is firm, honest, but rooted in possibility and compassion. This is hard, but I can figure it out. I've made mistakes, but I'm growing. I'm not where I want to be, but I'm not where I was. The voice inside your head can be your biggest critic or your greatest ally. You get to choose. Let go of old labels and limiting beliefs. From a young age, we collect labels like stickers: shy, lazy, weird, overdramatic, too much, not enough. Some are given to us by others, parents, teachers, bullies, or society. Others we assign to ourselves, after painful experiences or perceived failures. Over time, we wear these labels like badges of identity, forgetting that they were never meant to define us permanently. They were reactions, not truths. But when left unexamined, they turn into cages. Limiting beliefs are the mental scripts that tell you what you can't do, or who you can't be. I'm not creative. I'll never be a leader. I'm just not a relationship person. These aren't facts, they're conclusions drawn from past pain, fear, or conditioning. Yet we live by them, often unconsciously, structuring our lives around these invisible borders. We avoid opportunities, downplay our desires, or sabotage ourselves, all to stay consistent with a story that no longer serves us. To create a new version of yourself, you have to unlearn just as much as you learn. You have to question every label you've internalized and ask, is this really who I am, or just who I've been told I am? Letting go of old labels doesn't mean denying your past. It means refusing to let it define your future. It means acknowledging that while those beliefs may have felt true once, they aren't absolute truths, and they don't have to follow you. Freedom begins when you stop living in reaction to who you were, and start intentionally choosing who you want to be. You can shed the labels. You can rewrite the beliefs. You can choose a new narrative, one built on truth, resilience, and expansion. Reinvention is a lifelong skill. Too often, we view personal transformation as a one-time event. A crisis happens, a breakthrough comes, and we reinvent ourselves, once. But the reality is, reinvention is not something you do once and forget. It's a lifelong skill. Life will keep changing. Seasons will shift. You will evolve through phases, purposes, and priorities. Who you are at 20 will not serve who you need to be at 30. Who you are at 40 will need to be different than who you were at 25. If you're not actively growing, you're slowly drifting backward. The people who stay stagnant, bitter or deeply unfulfilled later in life aren't broken, they've simply stopped adapting. They clung too tightly to an old version of themselves and forgot how to evolve. Maybe they were once successful in a certain context, and now that context is gone. Maybe they were known for something, and fear losing that identity keeps them from trying something new. Reinvention requires the humility to let go of past identities, even successful ones, and the courage to begin again. This is why the ability to self-reflect, self-correct, and self-direct is a superpower. It allows you to respond to change, not just survive it. Reinvention isn't about discarding everything you've been. It's about integrating your past into a stronger, wiser, more intentional version of yourself. It's about staying in motion. It's about learning to pivot without losing your core. And the more often you practice this skill, the less terrifying it becomes. Change turns from a threat into a tool. Reinvention is not about escaping yourself. It's about continuously becoming more of who you were meant to be. Identity is a choice, not a chain. Many people believe their identity is something fixed, something inherited, assigned or locked in by past behavior. They say things like, "I've always been like this," or "That's just not me," as though identity is a permanent label they're forced to wear. But identity is not a life sentence. It's a collection of choices, behaviors, beliefs, and experiences that have been repeated often enough to feel solid. And anything built by repetition can be reshaped by repetition. You are not required to stay the same just because you've always been a certain way. You're allowed to outgrow who you were. You're allowed to become someone new, not because you're faking it, but because you're evolving into a more aligned version of yourself. The truth is, you are already changing all the time. Your thoughts, your body, your relationships, they are constantly in motion. The question is not if you're changing, but how intentionally you're directing that change. Choosing your identity means stepping into the driver's seat. It means asking yourself not just who you've been, but who you want to be. It's not about ignoring your past. It's about not letting it chain you. You may have spent years being the quiet one, the insecure one, or the angry one. That doesn't mean you're obligated to stay in that role forever. You are the author of your identity, and you can edit the script. There is freedom in realizing that who you are is not a fixed label. It's a living decision. You get to decide, every day, what kind of person you are becoming. No. 5. Action precedes belief. One of the most paralyzing myths we believe is that we must feel confident, inspired or ready before we begin. We think that belief in ourselves must come first, that only when we believe we're strong, talented, worthy or capable, can we take the steps toward becoming that version of ourselves. But the truth, the often uncomfortable truth, is that belief is not a prerequisite for action. Action is the source of belief. You don't wait to believe you're a writer before you start writing. You don't need to believe you're brave before you act with courage. The belief comes later, through evidence. When you do something new or uncomfortable, especially when you feel uncertain or insecure, you create proof that you are capable of doing hard things. The more you repeat that action, the more that proof begins to rewrite your internal narrative. Maybe I can handle this. Maybe I am more resilient than I thought. Every action in alignment with the new version of yourself is like casting a vote for your identity. And the more votes you cast, the harder it becomes to believe the old story about yourself. People wait for confidence to arrive like a bus that never comes. But confidence isn't handed to you. It's built rep by rep, step by step, in the gym of consistent, often uncomfortable, forward motion. Think about a child learning to walk. They don't believe they're good at walking before they try. They wobble, fall and stumble repeatedly. But they keep getting up, and in doing so they learn not just the skill of walking, but the confidence in their ability to move through the world. Adults are no different. You learn who you are by watching what you do. Action creates evidence, and evidence fuels belief. Environment either reinforces the old you, or supports the new one. We underestimate how much our surroundings shape our sense of identity. People, spaces, routines, and even the digital environments we interact with daily, all of them serve as either mirrors of our past self, or catalysts for our growth. If you are trying to become a new version of yourself, yet remain in an environment that constantly reflects and rewards the old version, transformation becomes exhausting and unstable. It feels like swimming upstream. You may make progress, but it's slow, heavy, and often short-lived. Your environment reinforces behaviors through repetition and association. If your friends see you as the one who always plays it safe, then even subtle interactions with them might discourage risk-taking. If your home is cluttered, chaotic and unmotivating, it's much harder to feel clarity and momentum when trying to create new habits. Even your digital environment, what you consume on social media, the conversations you allow in your inbox, the
the algorithms feeding you information, all contribute to how you see yourself and what you expect from life. The good news is, you can engineer your environment to support your reinvention. Start small. Declutter a space that reflects the future you. Tidy, intentional, minimal, creative. Seek out people who live the way you aspire to live, and spend more time with them. Limit contact with people who consciously or unconsciously drag you back into a role you're trying to shed. Change your playlists, your podcasts, your books. Let your inputs reflect your new identity before it's fully formed. This is not about being fake. It's about creating the conditions where the new version of you can breathe, grow, and flourish. So if you find yourself looking in the mirror and not recognizing or not liking what you see, don't shrink away. Don't numb the discomfort or accept it as your fate. Let it be your signal, your call to rise. Reinvention isn't about erasing who you are. It's about evolving into who you are always capable of becoming. You are not a finished product. You are a living story. And every day you wake up is a blank page. You don't have to wait for permission. You don't need everyone to understand. And you certainly don't need to stay trapped in an outdated version of yourself, just because it's familiar. The pen is in your hand. The past may explain you, but it doesn't have to define you. You don't like yourself. That's not the end. That's your beginning. Create a new version of yourself, and this time, make it one you're proud to become.